Hi, this story time is brought to you by Rubylanerox. I was a senior in college. Things were finally looking up. My long fight with acne was clearing up. I had my first acting gig. I was a few months away from graduating with my bachelor's degree in theater, TV, film. Hollywood, here I come! Let's take this story back a whole year. I was in a serious relationship, or so I thought it was at the time. I had broken off an engagement to my on and off again fiancé of 5 years. I got seriously depressed, and with so much to look forward to, I knew something wasn't right. I sought immediate attention. I went to my school's clinic where I told the first doctor that I saw that I was feeling really depressed. He simply dismissed my cry for help and suggested I work out. A couple of weeks later, I went again to the clinic where I spoke to a different doctor, and there I thought lay the answer to all my problems. The doctor prescribed me a little red pill called Effexor. Without question, I took the prescribed medication. It took a while to start working. They also sent me to see the counselor, which seemed like a waste of time. Forward to mid-semester, I was on top of the world, my confidence boosted like never before. I had plenty of new secret admirers seeking my attention, including my best friend who I leaned on for so much support. And I could finally feel the depression kicking off like a cheap habit. Before it happened, I twisted my ankle in my racquetball class. And that very night, I stayed up really late at my best friend's house trying to memorize lines for a play and recovering from my swollen ankle. The week of spring break, I had it all planned out. I was supposed to dedicate my time to being a leading star in a student production in a friend's directing play. With that being said, as I drove home that very night, a switch flipped. I was extremely frightened for no reason. I drove home with the lights on for the duration of the 45-minute drive home. I thought an evil spirit was sitting in the backseat of my car. I could feel at that moment something wasn't right, and I couldn't get myself to process anything like I normally had before. By this time, my mom intervened. She had no idea what had overcome me. She took me over to our local church to have the Father pray over me. By that time, I could remember having seen the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and I, along with my mom and father, were convinced that I was possessed and had a demon tormenting me. I must have gone along and played the part, and that's when my mom really lost control. There's so much to this story that I'm leaving out to keep this story moving along. I end up in the ER where they did CAT scans and decided to admit me into a mental institution because of my outrageous behavior. I remember being restrained on a stretcher in a super cold ambulance, being driven 4 hours away into the Looney bin. I arrived to the institution malnutrition and not in good health, physically or mentally. I was sedated for about 3 days straight. When I finally came to at the mental hospital, I had already developed a bad reputation amongst all the staff members and the admitted patients there. As I realized everything that had come to pass the past few days, I knew I wasn't going to continue taking any medication. As they did routine medication feeding, I wouldn't take the pills and would toss them away when no one was looking. Caution, I'm not encouraging anyone to do what I did. This is just a recollection of my story. A couple of days later, I'm all better. My doctors were impressed that I had made a speedy recovery. After about a week, I make a ton of friends. Everyone knew my name, and I had recovered my reputation at the institution. And I got special privileges to walk outside the facility with supervision. And the following day, I was due to be released. I had spoken to my mother the night before, and she told me that she was staying in a nearby facility housed by the mental institution and that she'd be picking me up first thing in the morning. I was overexcited. So excited that I could hardly sleep that night. Well, morning came and I was the first one up. The facility was having a St. Patrick's Day picnic outside. The hours turned to noon and I was pacing up and down the halls of the facility while everyone was outside having fun. The staff members noticed something was wrong. I grew completely impatient and had a disturbing thought that perhaps my mother was being paid off for me to be at the mental institution as a lab rat. And I grew angry. The staff had a low tolerance for incompliance. I was cornered in and the staff had to restrain me. When my mother finally arrived to pick me up hours later, she was delivered the bad news that I wasn't going to be going home that day. And I had to confess to my mother and to all the staff members that I indeed had not been taking any of my medication. This is the turning point. This is the moment I felt my life actually crumbling before my eyes. The facility informed me that they would be dropping me out of college and keeping me till further notice. I was completely devastated. I remember not having an appetite and looking out of the windows with no hope for ever leaving the mental hospital or of ever living a normal life again. I have wild memories of the shenanigans I got myself into after the extended stay in the mental hospital, but for the sake of moving the story along, I may mention them in a second video. All I had to look forward to was praying to God that He would restore my mental health and He would help me get released. A couple of weeks later, my mom was able to get me transferred into a closer facility about 45 minutes away from her home. The new facility I was transferred to was much smaller, but the admitted patients there were distinctly different, perhaps a little more feisty due to the smaller proximities of the facility. Almost 2 months in, and the doctors decided to release me under my mom's supervision. They released me with the grace of God, and I was heavily medicated. I remember I began to develop a bad case of Parkinson's disease due to a bad reaction to one of the medications I was taking. I had a stiff arm and a really nervous twitch. They sent me home with various medications, all masking some reaction to another. It was all a huge mess. I felt incredibly dependent on the medications as if I couldn't survive without them. Slowly, my mom began cutting me off all those powerful medications. She would give me half and thirds, till finally I had no medications at all. It wasn't easy. My mind took a huge toll. They were all medications to counteract serious mental disorders that the doctors assume I must have had by the behavior I displayed while in their care. With lots of prayer and faith, I was healed. I couldn't have gotten better without God or my mother's help. As you can imagine, life went on. I was still me. Just a part of me felt ashamed of where I'd been. I felt that part of my life defined who I was. It truly felt like a handicap. It's been a decade, and I have matured so much from that incident. I realized that time in my life doesn't define me. In fact, I just see it as a minor mistake. If I could have done anything differently, I would not have easily taken those antidepressant pills. I would have worked out just like the first doctor had recommended. I would have handled the breakup like a normal person. Whatever heartbreak really felt like would have been 100 times better than destroying all the hard work that had led me up to that point. I lost my dignity and a good portion of my reputation. A token of advice is to dig deep. All the answers to success rely deep within you. You have a choice to let past mistakes define you, or to put them behind you, and to move forward to continue searching for who you want to become. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.